have Amy Fields here.
Hey,
hey. Okay, and we're going to start with a training. Basically, we're going to start with a training on how to jam. And I've got a system to get you started jamming if you've never jammed before. And I'll deal with a few of the more advanced topics, I should say. Nothing will be too advanced. But then we'll go ahead and answer your questions. So please, at any time, ask your questions. Put them in the chat fields. Ami will, when we're done with the training, we'll go ahead and read the questions and I'll answer them. Anything having to do with learning and playing guitar. I really want to help you. Whatever is the things that are holding you back from loving your guitar playing journey. And at the end, as always, we'll have a drawing for the Real Guitar Success members who have completed the month's training or sessions, practice sessions. So let's just get started. Real Guitar Live. How to jam. First of all, a lot of the problems that I see with people learning is they think they have to learn a lot of theory or a bunch of scales to be able to jam. And that's not really, I don't think that's the best approach. Really, if you think of jamming as just playing music that you hear in your head that you feel inspired to play, I think it's a better approach. Music is an oral art. I mean oral as in listening. By learning scales and technology or techniques first and then try to mix them up and use them to make something that sounds good jamming-wise, it sounds mechanical. And I'll tell you that from experience because I came from a place where a lot of head stuff. I learned scales and what scales go with what chords and what chord progressions. And I had this wonderful musician that I admire come sit in on one of my performances one day with my band. And he told me afterwards, he was a really accomplished trumpet player. Hey, you look like you got some technique and some knowledge, but your stuff kind of sounds like scales, like you're playing a lot of scales. And I had to agree with him. When I listened back, it really did. It sounded like I was trying to think about what scale to play with what is going on with the band. So think of it this way. You want to jam, just pick a simple note or two and work it with the chord progression that you're playing. Now it helps if you know, kind of narrow it down to what notes are going to likely work best. So I'm going to tell you for right now which notes we're going to use. Don't worry about this yet. I'm going to pick notes all from this one scale called the minor pentatonic scale. There, that was right. And we're going to play a simple jam using just a few of those notes. I'm going to start with just this one note. So if you're watching me, you might want to try this. It's the fifth fret on the second string. And I'm going to play with my first finger because we're going to need the other fingers in a little bit. So let's just say we only have that one note to work with. Pretend there's nothing else available to you. How can we make that note sound good? So one of the things we could do is play different rhythms, right? Use some different rhythms. And of course I'm going to go with whatever rhythm I'm jamming with. Another thing you could do is play it softer and louder. You could bend it, add a little spice to it, vibrato. Santana's known for that. Just hitting the right note at the right time with a good little vibrato and letting it ring. So let's have the drummer play along and I'll give you an example and then I want you to try it. Just first finger.
Okay.
Okay, your turn. Okay, now we're going to add a note to that. I'm going to add another note from the scale, the minor pentatonic scale. We're going to add using the third finger, the 7th fret on the 3rd string. So it's these two notes now. Just those two notes. So again, pretend that's all the notes that are available to you. You have no other notes. The guitar only has 2 notes on it. So let's hear that drummer again. Here we go. We're going to just start playing with the notes, including using different rhythms. Okay, go ahead, Ami. Okay, let's add a third note. Oh, we're really stretching it now. 3 notes. So we got this note, 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. Now we're going to add that 5th fret on that same string. So that's the 3rd string. You know, if I were working on this, I'd practice the notes just a little bit without any rhythm or anything. Now you don't have to play all 3 notes all the time, so you might want to go between those 2. But remember, you got rhythm patterns too that you can make up that add variety to it. Okay, let's hear the drummer again.
Wait, what's the note? I couldn't find it.
It's on the 3rd string, 7th fret, 3rd finger.
7th fret.
Good.
So those 2, that one.
And then the 1st finger, 5th fret, same string. No, same string. You have to take your 3rd finger off.
Oh.
Yeah, good.
I'm learning.
Go ahead, try now. 3rd finger. 3rd finger.
Got it.
Good. Okay. Let's hear the drummer, and I'm gonna give you an example using 3 notes. Okay, and I was just playing, as if you probably know this, just 3 simple chords that are in that key. We're in the key of A. So I'm playing the A, D, and E chord. There are 3 chords, a common chord pattern in the key of A. So we got 3 notes. Now you might say, I want to add a little more spice to my improvisation, to my jamming. I would recommend at that point, start looking to maybe add a lick, which is a kind of just a little pattern that you could throw in from time to time. Something you practice ahead of time, then you throw it into the jam. So I'm going to pick a lick. We got these 3 notes. I'm going to shift my 2nd finger up to the 9th fret on the 3rd string and go over to the 2nd string on the 8th fret. So here we are, Amy. Get this. Got my 3rd finger on the 7th fret, 3rd string, slide it up to the 9th fret.
Oh, see.
You have to stay with the 3rd finger. Yeah, stay there.
Got it.
Now over to the 2nd string, 8th fret with the 2nd finger. But use your 2nd finger. Yeah, go back. Now back. And so here's the lick. Good. Okay, so that's the new lick. We're going to throw that in from time to time. Let's hear the drummer again. So here's the 3 notes. Whoop. There's the lick. Okay. Okay. So jamming is not all about just you learn a few techniques and you can do it. You want to experiment and work with it and make up something that sounds good to you. And that's the criteria. If it sounds good to you, it's working. And the more you do it, the better you get. Really, to be able to jam and really enjoy it, you have to do it a little bit regularly. I'd say every day, preferably, or at least 3 or 4 days a week. And little by little, your fingers kind of figure out what sounds good to you and what works. Add new lifts from time to time, more notes to your scale. Probably the next step I would do at this point is I know these 3 notes. Now I'd add another 3 notes. Yeah. I'd add these 3 notes. That's the 7th fret on the 4th string. Yeah. Down 2 frets to the 5th fret, and then over to the 5th string 7th fret. Use your 3rd finger. Back to the 5th fret, and up to the, yeah. So now I've got 2 sets of 3 notes. I'd work on one, work on the other, try connecting them, try it with my lick. I'll give you an example. I'll use both sets of 3 notes now. Go ahead and let me hear the drummer. So here's the first set. Second set. Oh, that was a... There we go. Now, what I was doing there was I was playing some power chords. Did you catch that?
Yes.
So for the A, I was using the A, it's just these 2 notes, the 5th fret on the 6th string. Use your 1st finger. And then your 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the 5th string. So 6th string and 5th string. You just hit those 2 strings. It's easy with the pick.
Yeah.
Then you move the whole thing over 2 strings to the 5th and 4th string. That takes the place of a D chord. And then for the E, you go down here and just use 1 finger on the 5th string, 2nd fret, and you hit the low open E on that string. And then back up to the A. Yeah. So try that with me. 1, 2, ready, A. Just 1, 2. Over to the D now. Down to the E. And then back up to the A. Again, ready, go. Over, down to the E, and back up to the A. Let's have it with the drummer now. I want some rhythm. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, ready, start. D, E, back up. Again. Over to D, down to the A, again, ready, go. Okay, so for those of you that this is coming quick and easy, your next step might be to go ahead and practice the entire pentatonic scale. It looks like this. I've got my 1st finger on the 5th fret. Let me see, that sounds out of tune. That sounds better, yeah, okay. 5th fret on the 6th string, 1st finger, then pinky on the 8th fret of the same string. bit of a stretch. Then over to the 5th string, 5th fret. 3rd finger on the 7th fret. Over, 1st finger. Yep. 3rd finger. Over, 1st finger. 3rd finger. Over, 1st finger. Now pinky again on the 8th fret. And then over 1st finger. And then pinky. That's a minor pentatonic scale in the key of A. A, we could say A minor pentatonic. So all those notes will work. Can you see there's a pattern there? It's 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4.
Oh, 1, 4, 1, 4. Got it.
Yeah, so 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4. There we go. So all those notes will work with this basic chord progression key of A, or power chord. By the way, I'm using a common chord pattern. The basic chords in the key of A are the A chord, the D chord, and the E chord. Another way we often say that is this is the 1 chord because it's the chord of the key A. The 4 chord, I just counted up 4 notes, A, B, C, D, and then 5 chord is E, A, B, C, D, E. That's a common chord progression. It's often referred to as a chord family also. Each family, you take one chord like D, and there are a couple of the chords that make good sense. They're often used in that key or they're part of that chord family. Right now I'm just sticking with the most simplest chord family, but you can get more complex with that. Okay, so are you guys all ready to jam now? I hope so. Let's see, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. Yeah, we have 2 questions from Antonio.
Let's go ahead and we'll start with the questions now.
Okay, cool. So Antonio was asking, why are scales so important and can scales be mixed?
Oh, that's a broad subject. Well, first of all, scales are important, I think, for 2 different reasons. One is that by playing scales, it trains your fingers and your ears to naturally be able to identify the notes that belong in that particular key. So if you're playing an A scale, it quickly identifies over time to your ear that those notes belong to that key of A. So if you're jamming in A, your fingers are going to easily go there because you play that scale over and over and over. Also, by the way, I think scales do make great exercises for that reason. Mm-hmm. They're great exercises because not only do they provide a nice pattern to work your fingers, but they also are training your ear at the same time. I want to say that I would caution those also who are just starting out that scales are maybe not the most bang for your buck when you're just first starting. I would focus more on learning at least some common chords and then putting them into chord patterns. And then working in scales that are appropriate for those chords. Adding those as kind of a warm-up exercise, and just don't have them take all of your exercise. What do you think, Ami?
Yeah, I would agree. I would say it's good to know them, just to have them, but you don't want to necessarily keep them at the forefront every time you're trying to improvise or anything like that. I think they're useful. They definitely have their. I think who was it? Was it Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis? I don't know. One of the jazz greats had said, like, learn all the scales and all the theory and then forget it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
If you're playing and you're concentrating on the scale, it's not going to sound very free or melodic.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not you can mix scales, the correct answer would be yes. As a matter of fact, especially in jazz, but you're mixing scales all the time. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, one approach to improvisation that's known more in jazz is to learn a bunch of different scales and actually play a different scale over different chords as they're progressing. You can imagine you have to really keep up. Mm-hmm. And you're not playing the whole scale either when you get to a new chord, just notes from that scale. In the bottom line, you're using your ear to hear notes that sound good. And by playing the scales, your fingers get easier at getting to those notes faster. I would say if you're playing in the rock or pop music, I wouldn't worry about that for now. I would practice your scales individually and then use your ears to keep checking to see if the notes that you're playing when you're practicing your jamming sound good. And they sound good to you, whether or not they're technically correct in your head if they're part of the scale. Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have a few that folks submitted beforehand. You want those now too?
Sure.
Okay. So I think it's Milo said, the question I have about jamming is, what does a guitar player need to know in order to jam freely and confidently play the appropriate notes? It feels to me like there's so much theory needed and so much time required in order to be able to jam successfully.
Well, great question. First of all, I think ear training is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of different ways to come at that. One of the things that I like is to have students do something by copy playing. Mm-hmm. And so what I'll do is I'll play a few notes in rhythm and then have the student play back the same notes. What I'm doing is I'm getting the student to hear the notes in their head and not just technically think, where should I put my finger? Where should I play this? Hear, ba, and be able to go to the guitar. Oh, God, second try. Because real improvisation is you hear the notes in your head and then they come out your fingers for your guitar, or your mouth for your saxophone. I think worrying about all the what do I call this? Scales and theory to be able to improvise is a little bit like coming back into it. Remember that all this theory came after people trying to figure out why things worked the way they did. Mm-hmm. What came first is people playing things that sound good, and then they looked at it and say, oh, why? How can we make sense out of that? Or how can we explain that to other people that we want to teach? But the bottom line is, people were playing things that sounded good to them. And whenever there was something new, it didn't sound good to people at first, but as they got used to it, it sounded better and better. It was kind of like adding new spice to the mix. As people got used to it, they craved it. Even Bach was considered outrageous in his time, just really revolutionary. Now it's old stuff, old people music. I say that facetiously. I love Bach. So I would go easy on the theory, learn a scale, like depending on what style you want to learn. If you're in the pop, jazz, rock area, start with a minor pentatonic scale. It works well, blues especially. It's a lot of rock is based on blues. Learn a basic pentatonic scale in the key that you're going to use it, like the A. I use the A minor pentatonic because it's a very common key to play on guitar. And work it. And then add maybe some theory and things a little at a time. I'll caution you, adults, me included, tend to like to try to use their head to figure things out. And sometimes, I really learned this when I was taking salsa dance lessons. If you use your head, you just trip all over the place and nobody wants to dance with you. I think it's kind of the same way with music. If you keep trying to intellectualize everything, it actually gets in the way. Use it. Hear what you're playing. Make sense out of it in your own mind. Add some more theory, maybe another scale, and try to integrate that into what you're doing. Don't lead with the theory and with the head stuff. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good answer.
Maybe I got a little off track.
No, ear training is definitely super important. And I have like a lot of tips and ideas and things you can do for ear training. One thing is one tip I can give you guys at least is to take ear training slowly. Don't rush into it automatically, like start listening to one of your favorite songs and trying to figure it out. You're just going to get frustrated. One simple exercise that you can start with is just playing two notes and trying to remember or figure out which ones are higher or lower. It's better with a partner because they can play it. So like if I were to play two notes and I go, okay, which one's higher? You'd say first or second. And that's one way to just start the process of getting your brain wrapped around the idea of where notes are in relation to other notes. And that in itself is really, really great ear training. And eventually then you can start learning about intervals and how they all work. And then that's going to really help you in the long run in terms of improvising too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very helpful, as you pointed out, to learn eventually to be able to identify intervals.
Yeah.
And it takes time. It starts simple, like this note to this note is a half step, or we call a minor second. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It's just that you can identify it in your head. This note to this note is a whole step or a major second. So I have students work starting with just minor seconds and major seconds and going up. Minor third would be 3 frets on the guitar, 3 half steps. minor third, and then eventually they can just da 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 da. They can just sing the notes, and it facilitates being able to make up a melody in your head and then play it on the guitar.
Yeah. I took an action ear training class, and one thing that they had us do was to sing the scale and play it. So we go major, second, major, third, perfect, fourth, perfect, fifth, and go all the way up. And then when you're coming down, it's minor, second, minor, third, perfect, fourth. So those are always like really fun little exercises too. That you can work.
I never tried that one.
Yeah, using the scale. I'll show it to you later.
Yeah, I'm not a big singer, so that'll be a little more strenuous for me. I mean, it's a better singer than me. Good. Any other questions?
Yeah. Let's see. Felix was asking, is there an easy way to memorize the chords?
There's no easy way in the sense that there's no like pattern that you can recognize. I will say there are certain chords that are better to memorize in the beginning and to start with somewhere around the C, G, D, because they all kind of fall into, they're all chords you can use right away and to play lots of songs. A, E, open chords, and then move into bar chords. It's easier to learn bar chords once you've learned the basic open chords. First of all, because your fingers get used to pressing down on the strings. But second of all, we use some of the patterns to make bar chords. For example, with an E chord, you just refinger it using your second, third, and fourth, and then move it up and put a bar down. And that becomes a bar chord. Different chord every time you move it, but same form. The way I would go about memorizing chords is to memorize them in those common chord families. Start off with a simple one that you're going to use a lot. A good one might be the key of, I'll say A. D is another good one. Let's say D. We'll take D. Practice the D chord, the G chord, then the A or A7, and back to D, and then learn some songs or some patterns, practice some exercises with that. Get to where it's easy to play those chords, and you're not struggling to remember where to put your fingers. At first, you'll put your fingers one at a time, but practice just putting little by little all your fingers down at one time. Then go on to another chord family that you're going to use a lot. Another one would be A, D, and E. Now you see some of the chords have crossed, so I'm using the D. I used A7 with the D pattern, but now you have an A very similar to A7. It becomes, if you use those a while, easy to memorize those 5 chords, and so on. Hope that helps.
Yeah. And Mark also said, I have a hard time with the B and the B flat chords.
Not uncommon. The B and the B flat, along with the F, are probably the hardest chords for people. One thing that you can try, especially if you want to play a song with a B or B flat, is try this partial B. It looks like this. You put your first finger on the 2nd fret, 1st string. Then you make these 3 fingers go in the same 3rd fret or 4th fret all together, starting with the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. Now, that is a B chord. You can't play the lower strings. They don't fit. But it's easier than barring. It's also movable. You can take that same form of B, first finger on the 2nd fret, 1st string, and then this is on the 4th string, 3rd string, and 2nd string, all on the 4th fret. You can move it around, move it down a half step, and you've got a B flat. B. Half step up, it's C. But the two that will become handy are the B and the B flat, same fingering. Now that said, I wouldn't shy away from bar chords. I would just work on them a little at a time, starting with some exercise, like a bar chord exercise, just to strengthen your first finger with a bar. Because there's so much you can do with bar chords, and a lot of people try them and say, it's too hard. It's not. It's because they tried probably the hardest bar chord, the F, right away. It didn't sound good and they gave up. Work into it a little at a time. Eventually you'll be able to play a B like this, or a B flat, a B, or like this. That's a B and a B flat. Bar chord. Okay, but in the meantime, you're cool with this. And it's not a chord you're just going to outgrow. It's a useful chord. I can use it to play something like that. When I want to stay on the higher strings, I want a higher sound. I don't want to jump up here to a bar chord.
Yeah, that's a good one. We did get another question here with one of our online folks. They said, how can I stop notes and chords from ringing out like an unintentional pull-off when I move my fingers? Which is something that we were just talking about before we went live.
This is a problem, actually, I was saying that I have when I'm recording videos, because the microphones are so sensitive, they really pick up those notes that are ringing, and sometimes they're really annoying. I haven't found the solution. I just keep working it. For example, what was I doing the other day? I'll just take a simple chord. But I want to take a chord where the notes don't work. What would be a good chord? So see, this chord, D chord, is not a problem because all the notes could work in the chord. They don't sound bad. Same with A. But if I take a chord like this, F sharp minor, and I hit this note by accident, or if I just hit these notes but this note's ringing, it really is annoying. The trick, of course, is to, like, extend your finger or some way mute the notes. Easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what I end up doing is muting with my palm of my right hand, so I'll play the chord, and then I'll stop. See, I even got some notes ringing there. There, I muted them better. I'll stop. It's a little bit of work, because now I have to bring my hand there and then quickly change the other chord. It takes practice. It takes persistence. Find out which notes are ringing and then deaden them with the palm of your right hand right after you play the chord. Or, if you can, touch the note with one of the fingers that you're using in your left hand. So, for example, if I didn't want this, I'll give you a better example. Let's see. Here's a chord. I don't want this first note to ring. That note doesn't belong. So what I'm doing, there it is. I'm deadening it out with my third finger. I'm just slightly touching the first string. And the same with the sixth string. I don't want it to ring, so I'm slightly touching it with the second finger right there. That's all I know.
Yeah, that's a good question. This is a common one that I get on ukulele as well from my students when they're playing some kind of melodic line and they're going, getting this like that hammer-on pull-off thing, which is not what they're actually trying to do. So do you have any tips on melodically how to do that if you're playing a melody?
It's the same thing. You need to either deaden the note with your right hand, the palm, or your left hand. In this case, I would go for my left hand. I can just
slightly pull off a little, huh? Yeah.
Now that's my left hand. When we have an open string, I need to go back there and see and touch it. And I will say, often when I'm playing melodically, I've done that so often, I don't think about it. My finger just knows to do it. I want to stop the string. All I hear in my mind is the notes ringing, and my finger does what it needs to do because it's used to doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I didn't have to think, lighten up. That's how I stop the note in my head. It just knows what to do. Practice.
Right. Yeah, and I think one thing I tell for my students too is to just lighten up the pressure on the string. And if you lighten up too quickly, then you're getting a pull off, right? You're getting that.
I have students do a pull-off exercise like this. Oops. Hammer. And then it gives them a chance to practice this. Okay, looks like this. So it's third finger on the second string, third fret. Mm-hmm. First finger on the first string, first fret. Mm-hmm. Now I hit the second string. And I'm going to hammer on here. I hit the first string and hammer on.
For hitting the first string?
Yeah. You have to put your first finger on the first string. Your finger was on the second string.
Oh, it was on the wrong string.
Mm-hmm. Now pinky. And then backwards. And then backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
And then you move it up. And it gives them a chance to practice what's going to... You have to lighten up if you don't want that to ring. You have to lighten up to stop the note.
That sounds tricky.
Cool. Tricky's good. Tricky is easy after you practice it.
That's a good point.
Any more questions?
Well, the person that asked about the one that we were just talking about also said, could it be I'm pressing too hard on the string?
For the
pull-off sound that they're unintentionally getting.
I don't see how pressing too hard can make that. Only as far as the string ringing, I don't see how pressing too hard can do that.
Yeah.
And that's something I'd actually have to watch your fingers. I will say, if you experiment with, you can see if it makes a difference.
Yep, that's all we have for questions for right now.
Okay, I think we're ready for our monthly drawing. We'll get the hat out. Ami will shuffle through the hat.
All right, let's see who we got this time.
So these are people who have completed the monthly practice sessions for the month of May.
We have Phil.
Phil, good job, Phil. You did it. Awesome. So we'll be sending you an Amazon gift card for $25. Thanks again for playing along. And thanks again for all of you for joining me today. Please submit your questions ahead of time if you'd like, and I'll answer questions in next month's our Real Guitar Live. It'll be the first Thursday of each month at 12 noon. That's it for today. Bye for now.